few days ago, Kendrick Perkins tweeted something out that had the NBA world ablaze, and I'm here to break it all down. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dariel from Knicks Digest, and let's get right into today's video. On Christmas Day, Kendrick Perkins had this tweet. You can talk all that about Jalen Brunson not being a 1A, but when you put him on the stage with superstars, he's coming out victorious across the board. Merry Christmas and carry the hell on. Now, if we watch First Take, you can see that the carry on is kind of Kendrick Perkins' thing. I don't know if it's gimmick, if you will, but this does bring up a really good conversation as far as where does Jalen Brunson lie within the landscape of NBA point guards. Jalen Brunson, after last season, he's been really coming on strong as one of the better point guards in the league, and you have to throw into account how Jalen Brunson has been able to come to the Knicks, turn that organization around, and we finally have a solidified point guard where you can throw him in the conversation as if he's going to continue with this type of career, he's going to be one of the all-time greats as far as the Knicks history. The Knicks don't really have a storied history. We only have a few players that you can look at as being one of the better players in the league. We got Willis Reed, Earl the Pearl Monroe, Walt Clyde Frazier, Patrick Ewing, of course. Some people want to throw Carmelo Anthony in there. Me personally, I'm not sure if I want to do that yet, but Jalen Brunson is making his case for being one of the better Knicks players in history. But before we dive into the numbers, I'm going to be comparing Jalen Brunson, the point guard, with other elite point guards, in my opinion. We're going to be going to the two different conferences. We're going to be comparing him to the Eastern Conference point guards, and then we're also going to be comparing him to the Western Conference point guards. But before we do all that, I want to actually take a look into Jalen Brunson's numbers. Now, guys, we're going to be talking about this season. We're only going to be talking about this season. We're not going to be talking about the overall career numbers because then the numbers might be different. But as far as this season, Jalen Brunson's numbers, he's averaging 26 points, 4 rebounds, 5.9 assists, shooting 48% from the field, 45.3 from three-point, and he's hitting his free throws at 81%. And I feel like I just wanted to put this video out because whenever players are being brought into the conversation, one of the best players in the league or by a particular position, I feel like the Knicks, they're always kind of scoffed at. And actually, Chris and I, we touched upon this topic a little bit in last night's video when we covered the post game with OKC Thunder versus the Knicks, because of course Jalen Brunson was going up against SGA. But whenever the Knicks or a player from the Knicks is brought up into this type of conversation, people always scoff at it. And I guess it's because the Knicks within the more recent years, they've been looked at as kind of a laughingstock in the NBA. But as of lately, under the leadership of Leon Rose, he's been able to finally make this team a respectable team and make people talking about the Knicks as a team that you definitely have to respect and you definitely have to bring your A game against, because we do have talented players. Now, the fit amongst players on the team, that's a different conversation for a different video. But as far as the overall landscape of the Knicks and how we are looked at in the NBA, people are respecting us, which we do got to give a nice shout out to Leon Rose. But going into the numbers now, we're going to be looking at one of the players that I'm going to be comparing Jalen Brunson to. The first player, we're going to start off in the Eastern Conference. We're going to be talking about Tyrese Maxiell. Tyrese Maxiell for this season, you can tell by the numbers right here. 25.8 points, 3.9 rebounds, 6.6 assists, 45.9 field goal percentage, shooting 39.3 from three-point field goal percentage, and hitting his free throws at 88.2%. Now, as far as the field goal percentage, Tyrese Maxiell is hitting 45.9 on 19 attempts. The three-point field goal percentage is 39.3 on 8 attempts. Tyrese Maxiell is definitely one of the up-and-coming younger stars in the NBA. But this is where I think Jalen Brunson has a little advantage over Tyrese Maxiell. We haven't seen Tyrese Maxiell in the playoffs where he's either the best player or undoubtedly the second best player on the team. Last season, James Harden was on the Philadelphia 76ers, and it was Joel Embiid, the number one option, and then it was James Harden, the number two option. In my opinion, I would have made Tyrese Maxiell the second option, but Doc Rivers, he was only able to do what he had available to him. And James Harden having the MVP, being a respectable player, even though I don't really understand why, he had to cater the offense to Joel Embiid and James Harden. So, in my opinion, Tyrese Maxiell, as of right now, he just doesn't have the reps to go with it. He just needs a little bit more experience, a little more runs into the playoffs. This upcoming playoffs is going to be a real big one for Tyrese Maxiell. We're finally going to be able to see him as the right-hand man to Joel Embiid. We're going to see how he handles that pressure. We're going to be able to see how he handles the defenses who are going to be scheming against him. Of course, they're going to be scheming against against Joel Embiid. He's the leader of the team, but they know that Tyrese Maxiell is a very dangerous player and he can have a huge effect on the game. So as far as Tyrese Maxiell, the only thing that he has going against him right now is he does not have the experience which Jalen Brunson has over him. So that's the first player that I want to talk about. The second player, we're going to stay in the Eastern Conference. We're going to be talking about another young point guard who's up and coming, and he's actually taking the league by storm. We're going to be talking about Tyrese Halburn of the Indiana Pacers. For the season, Halliburton's averaging 24.8 points, 4 rebounds, 12.1 assists, which is ridiculous. Shooting 50% from the field, 3-point field goal percentage, 42.1, and he's hitting his free throws at 85.3%. For the field goal percentage, he's shooting 50.5% on 17 attempts. The 3-point field goal percentage, he's shooting 42.1 on 8.5 attempts. Now, Tyrese Halburn has had an interesting career up until this point, being drafted by Sacramento, and then Sacramento having to make a decision between Darren Fox and Tyrese Halburn. They obviously went with Darren Fox, and he traded Halburn to the Indiana Pacers. Now, when he got traded to the Indiana Pacers, a lot of NBA fans, we knew that he was talented, but I guess we just didn't know how talented he was. This season, he led the Indiana Pacers to the finals of the in-season tournament, and in my opinion, the in-season tournament, as the years keep going, the in-season tournament, in my opinion, is actually going to become a tradition. It's not the Larry O'Brien Trophy, of course, but the in-season tournament is going to have a significant impact on the season as the years go on. It just needs to have a little bit more reps, and in order to build that type of cachet, if you will, the in-season tournament just has to have more reps. But Halliburton, man, he is just having a great season. He's coming on strong, but again, just like Tyrese Maxiell, the only difference between Maxiell and Halliburton has actually never been to the playoffs. So this season, if he could get his Indiana Pacers to the playoffs, one, it's going to be his first time in the playoffs, period. And then two, we're going to actually have to see how his game translates into the playoffs, because when the playoffs start, everybody knows, if you're an NBA fan, you know how the playoffs is different from the regular season. The regular season, you're going to be able to you're going to be able to get your numbers, but the playoffs, that's where defenses are going to be able to scheme against you a little bit more. It's best of 7. You're not going from one team to another team. You got to win the first 4 games, and you have 4 games to go against a defense that's designed to stop you. So I'm definitely interested to see how Halliburton handles that pressure. He just needs more reps. He has to get into the playoffs, and this is where Jalen Brunson, in my opinion, has the advantage over Halliburton. Brunson just has the experience. He has going to, in the Western Conference, when he was with Dallas, Luka going out, and for those 2 or 3 games, he was able to really, really just take over the game when he was going up against Utah Jazz. And then last season with the Knicks, in his first year, going to the second round, upsetting the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. And again, being with the Knicks, seeing how the Knicks don't really have a storied history, Jalen Brunson is making a lot of noise. Now, for the third Eastern Conference point guard that I want to talk about, this is someone who I feel like doesn't get the respect that he deserves, but in my opinion, I do understand why there are people that are questioning his ability. And we're talking about Trey Young of the Atlanta Hawks. Take a look here at the numbers. He's averaging 28.1 points, 3 rebounds, 11.3 assists, shooting 43% from the field, and 3-point percentage, he's shooting 38.5. From the field, he's shooting 43.3 on 20 attempts, and 3-point field goal percentage, he's shooting 38.5 on 9.3. Now, Trey Young is interesting because there's a little difference between Trey Young and Tyrese Halburn and Tyrese Maxiell. Trey Young actually has a body of work that you can hold up against Jalen Brunson. Trey Young has been to the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2021 season, the season after the pandemic, and within that Eastern Conference Finals run, in the first round, he was actually matched up against the New York Knicks, where it was the 4-5 matchup, and the New York Knicks were actually favored in that series. But he came into Madison Square Garden. He showed that he doesn't shy away from the pressure, and he shined when the lights were the brightest. But the thing with Trey Young is he's a very up and down type of player with his shot selection, with his just physical stature. Like, with that type of player, I don't know if you can build a championship winning team around Trey Young. When he was making his Eastern Conference Finals run, Some people say it might be fluky because it was the first season after the pandemic, and there was just a lot of stuff going on. In the Eastern Conference Finals against the Bucks, he lost. I believe it was in 6. So Trey Young, he has the resume and he has the body of work that you can argue with Jalen Brunson. But in my opinion, Jalen Brunson has shown you a little bit more as far as being a dependable leader on a team. Jalen Brunson, you know the type of game that he's going to have. He is going to shoot his three-pointers. He is going to really get to his spots in the mid-range. He is going to use his Kobe footwork, RIP Kobe. He's going to use the Kobe footwork that he used. You know the type of steady game that Jalen Brunson is going to go into every single game. With Trey Young, it's very up and down. You're not sure if he's going to depend on his shots. You're not sure if he's going to depend on trying to be a playmaker for a game, which he has that ability. A lot of people look at Trey Young as just a scorer, but if you take a step back and look at his overall game, he does make his teammates better. But I just feel like Trey Young hasn't really been in the right situation since he's been with Atlanta. Now, the last player that I want to talk about within the Eastern Conference is actually Darius Garland. Darius Garland, in my opinion, he is an incredibly talented player, has all the talent in the world. But since he's gotten in the league, he hasn't really shown anything. And then with the trade with Donovan Mitchell, I feel like the Donovan Mitchell trade has stunted his growth. And now in this season, he fractured his jaw, so he's going to miss it a significant amount of time. So I just feel like Darius Garland, like, as far as talent, you definitely deserve to be in this conversation. But as far as like what you've shown us, I can't necessarily put you in the conversation. So as far as the Eastern Conference, the better point guards, in my opinion, we got Trey Young, we got Tyrese Maxiell, we got Halburn. But in my opinion, Jalen Brunson has an advantage over all 3 of those point guards. Trey Young might be the only one where you can have a conversation. Halliburton has to show us what he can do in the playoffs. Maxey has to show us what he can do in the playoffs as far as being the second best player on the team. And he has to show us that he's going to be able to help Joel Embiid and that Joel Embiid can rely on him. So the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, I think Jalen Brunson is the best point guard. Now we're going to take a look into the other conference. We're going to be talking about the Western Conference. And the first player that I want to look at is actually Darren Fox. Darren Fox for the season is averaging 30 points, 4.6 rebounds, 6.1 assists, shooting 48.7% from the field, 39.6 from 3-point, and 73.6 from converting his free throw shots at 73.6. Now that free throw percentage, I definitely would like to see that number up. But as far as the field goal percentages, he's shooting 48.7 on 21 attempts, and 3-point, he's shooting 39.6 on 8.5 attempts. De'Aaron Fox, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. It is 100% because of the market that he's in. He plays for the Sacramento Kings. He was drafted by the Sacramento Kings, and he's been there ever since. And I believe it might be his 8th or 9th season. And last season was his first time in the playoffs. I've been wanting to see Darren Fox in the playoffs ever since he was drafted. You could tell the type of talent this guy had. We just had to see it when it mattered most, and that was in the playoffs. And last season, they lost to the Warriors in 7. In my opinion, I think the Warriors were actually upset the Kings because after that series was over, you just saw how much that Draymond punch against Jordan Poole really affected the team. They barely won any games on the road. You could tell that the chemistry was off, and Sacramento, I felt like, really let one get away. I really felt like they deserved to win that series. But the Warriors, championship pedigree, they were able to win and move on to the next round. But De'Aaron Fox, man, the last few seasons, he's been coming on strong, using his speed, and yeah, I feel like he definitely deserves to be in the conversation as one of the better point guards in the league. Now, if he could put another playoff run like he did last season, in this upcoming playoff season, we might have to have the conversation of De'Aaron Fox, not just best point guard in the league, but actually an MVP caliber type player. Now, it's a good thing that Jalen Brunson doesn't have to go up against De'Aaron Fox a lot because he is in the Western Conference. But this is one thing that De'Aaron Fox has an advantage over Brunson, just his physical stature. De'Aaron Fox is 6'5", 6'6". So just like the next point guard that we're going to be talking about, Jalen Brunson has a hard time when he's going up against point guards that are taller than him. Jalen Brunson can't really do anything about that, so that might be like a slight notch against Jalen Brunson, but he has the basketball mental IQ to go against that. But if we're talking about just pure talent and the skills that a player has, Darren Fox, man, is up there with the best. We're talking about the Lukas. We're talking about the Stephs. He just needs more reps. He needs more reps in the playoffs. He finally has one playoff series under his belt, and the experience that he gained from that, we're going to see in this upcoming playoffs. We're going to see if he's going to be able to use that experience in this upcoming playoffs. Now, the next Western Conference point guard is actually a point guard that we actually just saw not even 24 hours ago. We're talking about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If we take a look here in the numbers, 31 points, 5.8 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 54% from the field, 30% from three-point, and hitting his free throws at 90%. Now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if you watched last night's video where we did a post-game show covering the OKC game against the Knicks, one of the things I said was that last season, SGA made first-team All-NBA. And for the casual NBA fans, or if you're not too sure about All NBA and you're watching this video, so every season the NBA compiles a list of the 15 best players for a particular season. So for last season, in the first team All NBA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was on that team. So he was one of the 5 best players in the league for last season. And every time I'm reminded of that, I always have to take a step back, because the talent with SGA, man, I remember when he got drafted with the Clippers and he was a rookie going up against the Warriors in the first round where they lost in 6. Shai Gilgeous was looking like a 5-year veteran, not looking scared, taking it to the rack, knowing the rotations, and when the Clippers traded him, shout out my guy Steph, who's in LA, who's a Clipper fan. But when they traded him, I told him that was an immediate mistake. They should have tried to keep him and try to do anything they can to keep him. But SGA, Chris last night in the video was saying how SGA is in the class with Steph and Luka. Now, in my opinion, I don't think SGA is in that class, because Steph and Luka, they have been to the playoffs and they've made really deep playoff runs. I mean, Steph has 4 rings, obviously. Luka has a Western Conference Finals under his belt, and Luka is consistently every season in the MVP conversation. And SGA, he hasn't been to the playoffs yet, as far as being the leader on the OKC team. He's been to the playoffs, but he was a rookie on a Clipper team where they had Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Beverley, Danilo Gallinari. They had players. He wasn't the main player on that team. Now, with the OKC Thunder, Shai Gilgeous has been there for 5 seasons, maybe 5, 6, 4, 5, or 6. I'm not sure the exact number, but he's been coming on incredibly strong. And the OKC team, they're actually not too far off from a few pieces, man. They just got to get a few pieces. They definitely need another big man. Chet Holmgren might be the rookie of the year. Upset, because everybody expected Victor Wembanyama to get that award, but Chet has been coming on as if he's a veteran. A lot of people didn't expect that. Really tall, skinny kid. He's the only true 5 that they got, but he can step outside on the 3-point line, hit the 3, put the ball on the floor. His nice little post-up game. Man, that team has a really, really bright future. But as far as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander himself, this guy, man, the guy's skills is just ridiculous. He has the handles. He can attack the rim. He can stop on the dime. He has the mid-range shot. He has the post-up game. He's 6'5", so he has the advantages over traditional point guards. And this is, again, where Jalen Brunson has a little bit of a disadvantage going against SGA, going up against the Darren Foxes, because of his physical stature. But we're talking about skills. SGA, man, you got to throw him in the conversation as one of the better point guards in the league. And this leads me to my next point, which I briefly touched upon. You might be wondering why Steph and Luka are not on this list. But like I just said, Steph and Luka are in another stratosphere. Steph has 4 rings. Luka is in the conversation for being an MVP every single season. Now, having brought you all of those players, showing you all of those numbers, comparing Jalen Brunson to the Trey Youngs, the Darren Foxes, Halburns, Maxies, all these type of point guards, in my opinion, Jalen Brunson might have the advantage on almost all of them. Every single point guard that you could talk about, you can talk about a weakness that they have in their game, or you can talk about the body of work that player has. The body of work might not be there compared to Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson, as far as weaknesses, what is there? He has the mid range. He has the post up game. He might not have the height, but he does have strength to put you on the block. He has the footwork. He has the 3-point shot. He has the mid range. He has the ability to lead a team and bring the expectation up for a team. When Jalen Brunson got here, the expectation of him signing that contract, coming to the Knicks, wasn't that high. But then when we saw what he did in the first round against Cleveland, and then when we saw what he did in the second round, losing his 6 to the Miami Heat, I believe he ended with 38 points on Game 6, the game that they got eliminated in. He raises the expectation of an organization. And this is why I think Jalen Brunson deserves to be in the conversation for one of the best point guards in the league. You guys might be arguing with me in the comments saying, like, how can you think Jalen Brunson is better than this player? Look at the abilities that this type of player has. Jalen Brunson doesn't really have that in his game. Again, what we're taking into account is skills, is talent, but one of the biggest things is the body of work that the player has shown us. All right, guys, that's it for today's videos. But before I wrap it up, I want to remind you guys to leave it in the comments. Let me know what you guys think as far as my analysis of Jalen Brunson's game, comparing his game to the other Eastern Conference point guards, comparing him to the Western Conference point guards. Let me know what you guys think. And of course, smash that subscription button. If you guys are watching this video, remember to hit that subscription button. We need the numbers to go up, and we'll check you out in the next video. Peace.